Welcome to day 3 of your challenge, where I will take you into a little introduction and exploration of functional anatomy, which is a topic I will dive deeper and further into in the 80-hour Yin Yoga teacher training and give you a little taster now in your challenge. So functional anatomy in combination with Yin Yoga, we see it as our physical philosophy, so to say. This is where we come from, this is where we relate to, and this is also relating to all the tissues in the body we work with, which is mainly the connective tissue and the fascia for our Yin Yoga practice. Now, functional anatomy is not so much about aesthetics, and this is also why it relates so much to Yin Yoga, because our Yin Yoga practice has not so much to do with perfect alignment, for example. It's more the art of coming into your body, finding the calmness and the stillness there, dive deeper for this introspection, but also learning how your body then functions and how you can bring it on that path there. So it can find the calmness and the stillness, and from there one can relax the body. We always start with relaxing the muscles first from a comfortable position, and then diving there deeper to reach for that connective tissue and fascia. Yes. Also in there we will address the joints, for example, and this will all nourish the body. It will bring it more into a state of optimal health, of homeostasis, also regulating it. Between the yang force we have, we use the yin to eventually find balance in our practice and through our practice into our daily life. So functional anatomy, I will address in the training as well concepts like skeletal variation, how we are all unique in our body, starting with our bones, and then how our bones connect together, yes? How this skeletal is built up and how we all different in there, something we call skeletal variation. And if we then start to look and understand how this body functions through the skeleton, how the body opens up here through my hips, for example, but also that there is a concept as compression in a joint, because somewhere this mobility I have will stop. And this is very unique to my body. Of course, it depends on what I do with this body and how I train it. And when we train it also through the concept of connective tissue and fascia, and we keep those tissues nourished and full of energy, then the body can find its full mobility, so to say. It can feel flexible and open and released from unnecessary tension. So skeletal variation is a concept that comes back in the Yin Yoga teacher training, but also we look very deeply into what is tension and compression, what is connective tissue and fascia, how we combine all these concepts together. And then we come back to this fact that in yoga is not so much about the aesthetics. It's not about lining this body up in a perfect position. It is aligning it with your inner self. So something I always say, like this inner alignment we're trying to find, where we then eventually come to this introspective space, where we find stillness, where we can work with mindfulness. And then yes, we need to allow this body to go into the shapes and forms as it can by itself, to start from this comfortability. And also understanding where we go and when we go too far, too deep, or might push ourselves, which is all not really related to yin. Yin is more coming from, what do I feel? How does this feel? And from this feeling, how would I place my body then? And then finding that, being able to dive deeper inside. Then what do we find there? What sensations are there? Also through the physical body. Working with things like acknowledging your edge and giving everything time. But for that, we need to have a good understanding how this body functions. So here we come back to functional anatomy. How does it function? How does everything relate to each other? And then how does it relate to your own practice, to the shapes you make, the forms you make, so to say? And then eventually start to understand that whole concept of functional anatomy, so you can bring that in also when you teach, when you guide others through the practice, when you maybe even teach another style of yoga, because this gives certain insights that can be beneficial for any style of yoga or any exercise, so to say, that goes through the physical body, to understand that we're all unique. And then when we look at a picture that might look amazingly aesthetically, that it might not be the same for everyone, because we're all built differently. This is where compression, for example, comes in. Compression comes in a lot of different ways and forms. I have compression between my body and the floor, for example, there where there's touch, and then there's compression, especially with gravity working down towards the earth. There's also compression here on the back of my knee, because my body comes together there. Yes. And when I would move forward, I create even more compression on the front of my body, in my belly, for example, but also here in my hips. Creating an understanding that everywhere where we create certain compression through the body, then on the opposite side, there's always the opposite force going on, tension. And when I talk tension and compression in functional anatomy and yin yoga, I'm not so much talking tension that is the tension of tightness that we might experience, or engagement of the muscle, or shortening of a muscle. Because in yin yoga, we come from more relaxing the muscle first, finding that restorative shape where everything is sort of okay and comfortable, to eventually move deeper towards the yin side, which might then feel a tiny bit uncomfortable, because you still start to elongate and put tension on certain places in the body. Or even the compression on the back of my knee might not be super comfortable anymore. Though this tension and compression we put on the bones, the joints, and the tissues, the connective tissue I'm talking about then, is beneficial. If we create an understanding how we can nourish our connective tissue, how we can nourish our fascia, which is this inner skin we have that is wrapping around everything, then we don't want it tight. We want everything to be functioning. When we breathe, that every organ in our body is moving, that everything can function inside our skin, that there is a certain fluidity. Therefore, we slowly open up that body, but this cannot be done by most yoga practices where you engage the muscle. You have to start from this relaxed muscle into softening, and then eventually start to put tension and compression on the other tissues that are holding us together. Yeah. Now, skeletal variation is a big concept in yin yoga and functional anatomy as well. How we are all unique, and then how we implement this in our practice. For me personally, this was, I still get goosebumps, such an eye-opener when I came across a teacher that told me that it's okay, that I follow my body, yes, and not the person next to me, for example, and that yin yoga is actually inviting me to explore my own body. Instead of going for this very aesthetical alignment, to explore like, okay, where do I find space? What prop do I maybe need for that as well? How long do I have to stay and relax into it? And then feel how that body just opens, yes? So together I like to explore one pose where I can give you a good example through my own body. And this might be different for you, but through my own body, how it's different between other yoga practices that go more for maybe alignment and engagement of the muscles, and the yin yoga practice, yes? So for that, I will move and set myself into what we call in Hatha Yoga Baddha Konasana. And you see that I use a prop. And this is otherwise if I would not. And I can show you the tension, or the tendency, I have to say, of my body. If I would relax it like we do in Yin Yoga, I'm falling backwards. I have to engage a lot to sit up straight, though this engagement we're not going for in Yin Yoga because we like to be relaxed. Though if I want to move forward, this is not much helping. Yes, I really have to go against the force. Now I learned through Yin Yoga that a little prop, for example, can help me to tilt my pelvis, and then I can sit up very relaxed like this. Just a little bit of height will help me here, and it doesn't cost me much effort. Now coming back to the pose of Baddha Konasana, or as we call in Yin Yoga, butterfly, and we give it other names so we have an understanding as well how the performance is, that it's not engagement through the muscles, but it's the relaxation of the muscle and eventually opening up through the connective tissue. Most likely the teacher will ask me to bring my heels close to my groin and to sit like this and then to move forward. Now I've been practicing yoga for almost 15 years, but this is where I go. So this is my body. This is my skeletal variation. This is how my upper leg bone here, my femur comes into the pelvis and forms the hip joint and is in compression, obstructing me to move more forward. Now luckily there is yin, yes, where I said in the beginning we're allowed to explore, to play, to investigate what else is possible here. Now what else is possible, I might go here. I keep we show it from this way, you can see when I have this here how high my knees are, and when I would place one lower, see what happens in my body. Might be different in yours. So maybe you come to the same pose as me, yes, and do a little exploration together. Find out first for yourself if you in relaxed position can sit upright, or if you need like a little blanket or a towel underneath you. And then placing your heels very close to your groin and see how much space there is in your body. And I know some people will come with the nose to the floor. Possible. We're all different. We all have a different skeletal variation. Now from here, go and explore where you want to put your feet and you sit comfortable. For me, this is here. Here I am comfortable. Also thinking about what the function is of this form we're making, and you will learn all these functions in our Yin Yoga teacher training. Every function of the posture. It's like bringing tension on the inside of the leg, for example. Here, I don't sense anything. I only feel obstructed in my hip joint, so I don't get any function, no benefit out of this shape. When I go here, I start to feel a light, nice tension on the inside of my legs. Then we take full butterfly pose. We would move forward, which we do with a more rounded spine, because then we can like pull on that connective tissue that is along the spine. So when we stay straight, we engage through the muscle to stay straight and shorten the back muscles. When we round, we open all that tissue up on the back of the body, allowing ourselves to just gently come down and feel also, okay, I get more sensation on the inside of my legs. Maybe I need a prop, yes, to be there. And then you will learn how to deal with all the props, but also how to deal with time and your edge and things like that in our course. Well, maybe for the first minute you're here, but find for yourself, this is my invitation to you, a butterfly position that is not in your full capacity yet.
but where you feel, okay, this is sort of comfortable and I can relax in here.
So you start to let go of the tightness in the muscle. You let go of the unnecessary tension the body's been building up, and relaxing the muscle as much as possible. So no pushing or pulling forward, simply coming a little bit forward. And even if it's a centimeter, it's a centimeter. This is what we're learning as well in the Yin Yoga teacher training, to be okay with everything that is there. Yes, and how your body functions through the functional anatomy. And then eventually you find your way.
And most likely, your feet are positioned completely somewhere else than mine. And of course, then we always invite the breath to be here, to feel, to center ourselves, and to dive inwards, to observe what is there, so we can also stay honest to what the body is telling us, to be not so much responsive to everything we feel, but to acknowledge what we feel, that it's there, except for when the stress you feel in the tissues or the joints is too big, then you might change.
Also, if you feel it's too comfortable, then you might take props out again. So this is an exploration. It's said Yin Yoga as a practice of stillness. But for the 10 minutes you might be in a posture, or the 5, doesn't mean you're never allowed to move. But you only sort of move when you feel you're going over your edge, or there is a very deep pain, and then it's necessary to move. But also when you feel that you like to decrease the sensations, and in this butterfly that would be simply coming up a little bit, or increase the sensations by coming down with the upper body. And I wish we had another 10 minutes so you can really feel into this. But maybe after this, you do it one more time again. You really explore for yourself, taking a good few minutes, 5 minutes or so, to be in that pose, to relax the muscles as much as possible, to sense eventually, how does that feel, that pull on the connective tissue, which is more around your joints, for example. Now, for now, I ask you to use your hands to gently roll yourself up, feeling your sit bones grounding again, rolling up through the spine, gently coming up. As we always do, we rebound, so we give the body the time to realign itself. Having the head above the heart, and just sensing in the legs, how the sensations that were there maybe now become different, changing. And then bringing your legs forward, let your hands help. We always take a lot of time. That is really yin practice. And also don't start to move right away and tapping into the muscles again, but let the tissue restore and rejuvenate itself. So eventually, and I will talk a lot about that as well in the functional approach of this Yin Yoga teacher training, is this rebound is where the magic happens. This is where we open up all the channels in our tissues, but also all our energy channels, to let the energy flow again, yes? To flush out the system, so to say, and to let the energy flow evenly again. This is what I will address also around traditional Chinese medicine, and when we start to talk about the meridians, the energy channels in the body. But first, when we want to create an understanding there, we need to create an understanding of how this body functions, how tension and compression works, function over form, skeletal variation. We dive so deep in this training. It's pure magic. So I hope to encounter you there. And I also hope you're going to try this pose one more time for yourself, to do it and practice it with more introspection than me talking to you. I hope you enjoyed and that we will see you back soon.